Hello, everyone. I am visiting Sleepy Hollow Cemetery here in Concord, Massachusetts, and I am going to see the grave of Nathaniel Hawthorne and Ralph Waldo Emerson, among several other authors. And this is a dream come true for me because I have always wanted to connect with my literary icons from the past, but have never really been able to until recently because Hawthorne's poetic prose heavily inspired me. And so to actually come here and to actually connect with that, it's going to be a truly transcendent experience. So I hope I can take you on this tour, my journey over the next few minutes. This is Henry David Thoreau's grave, who, of course, built the famous rustic cabin. That's essentially what he's known for. I haven't actually read as much of him. I'm hoping to after this, but it is still very much a transcendent experience to come here and experience authors from the past. Now, this is the grave of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was one of the founders of the Transcendentalist movement, which was a reaction to the Enlightenment movement, which was based so much in rationalism. And the Transcendentalist movement was really about getting in touch with nature, your romantic side. And he was a pioneer of that movement. And he, of course, inspired authors like Hawthorne and Melville later on. So now I haven't really read a lot of him because he's not really a fiction writer, but I hope to in the future. And so I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to see his grave because I will remember it when I read him later on. This is the grave of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, Hawthorne is one of my absolute favorite authors um, because his poetic prose, that style, has inspired me heavily. In fact, when I read Hawthorne, very often I'm thinking, I could have written that myself. And so I relate to him on a very visceral level. Um, and so to come here and actually see the grave of the author who inspired me, it makes it real. It makes it no longer just theoretical. It's real. These people were real. They existed. Of course, I already knew that theoretically, but it makes it again more visceral when I can come here and experience it for myself. So I am highly enthusiastic about coming here today because I get to actually live and experience and touch the past, and it is truly gratifying, and I don't take it for granted for 1 minute, because so very often, the past is something that it's a little sad when you read about the past and you realize these people are gone. They lived, they had hopes, they had dreams, and now suddenly they are gone. And this brings me a little closer to how people actually lived then, so I can see perspective from a much wider vantage point, realizing that these that because when you read, you get perspectives that sometimes don't always match modern sensibilities, modern philosophies. And that's not to say people from the past were always right, but you get a much larger view of the world than if you just read modern literature. And Hawthorne has given me so much of that, and I appreciate it so much. So I can't express enough how much I love coming here today, and I will remember it for the rest of my life. This is the Blithedale Romance, which I believe Hawthorne actually wrote while he was in Concord, Massachusetts. It's one of his later books. It's about this. I'm currently reading it right now, so I actually haven't finished it. But it's about Blithedale, this socialist farm where a lot of artistic people are trying to get away from capitalism and the world. And it's something that Concord itself was kind of like a Blithedale for Hawthorne. He was trying to escape the world, trying to escape Salem, where he was originally from. And the book so far, though, has a very gothic tone to it that I think fits this cemetery quite well. And so, but because I'm reading it right now, I thought it was appropriate to have it in front of Hawthorne's grave because it connects me so much to the author. Um, Reading his work and being at his grave at the same time. It's a truly surreal experience, but it's one that I treasure immensely. This is The Scarlet Letter, which I have read all of, and the reason I love this book is that I am currently writing a book, The Disappearance of Richard Blackwood, that is heavily inspired by The Scarlet Letter. Um, and you have to remember that when Hawthorne was writing The Scarlet Letter, the 1600s were already 200 years before, so it was a period piece even for him, and he was entering the mind, so to speak, of Puritan New England in a way that was very visceral for him because he had ancestors that were actually involved in the Salem witch trials. And to me, what's interesting though about Puritan New England specifically is that there was an elegance to it in terms of the of poetry and the overall um, visual presentation of the Puritans, but at the same time, there was also a conservative rigidity to it, and that contrast I find so fascinating. And Hawthorne explores that quite well in The Scarlet Letter, and because this is his most famous novel, I thought it was appropriate to show it in front of his grave, so I can make that connection and make it just so much more visceral and real and alive. Again, this truly is a magnificent experience for me, one that I will never forget. This is Dr. Crimshaw's Secret, which was a book that was published by Hawthorne's son after his death, so it wasn't finished in his lifetime. In fact, he was writing this book at the time of his death. So that this actually gives the book and the grave um, a really close and intricate connection because he was probably writing this just a few days or even a few moments before he passed. And so it's almost surreal to think that the words in this book were some of the last passing through his mind. And I actually found this book a few days ago in a bookshop where actually my sister brought it to me. I actually didn't see it originally, and I didn't even actually know that this book existed at first. And it from what I can tell, it was actually printed in 1883. So this is a very old book. It was published around 18 years after Hawthorne's death, and so this book matches the tomb quite well because they're from a similar period. And the fact that this book is actually about a graveyard, that that just makes it that makes the irony even more poetic. And to me, that is what makes this a truly transcendent experience. The fact that this book was published by his son after his death, and the fact basically to carry on the memory of his father, and now I am bringing it back to the original author here at his tombstone. There's a lot of poetic irony in that, and this is truly an unforgettable experience for me. This is again Dr. Crimshaw's Secret, and now the book is actually touching his grave. It is the present through me, using the book almost as a translator in order to touch the past. It is the final book that he wrote, um, having contact with its maker. Again, there's almost a poetic irony in that. The fact that the last words that he wrote are actually having, in some ways, an impact on him once again. It is truly a transcendent experience. It is truly remarkable, and it's one that I will never forget. This is Sophia Hawthorne, the wife of Nathaniel Hawthorne, who, from what I understand, was a great supporter of his work and believed in him immensely. And from what it says here, she was reinterred here June 2006. So apparently, she was not buried with him after her death. But it is very fortunate that they are reunited now because women, especially then, did not get really the credit they deserved. But quite often, they were immensely important when it came to their husbands' careers. Quite often, that they could not have become authors without them, and so I want to honor her as well because she also played a very significant part in Hawthorne's life. This is the climax of my journey here at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. I decided that I wanted to write something while here in the area where Nathaniel Hawthorne actually wrote. And this paragraph is the beginning of chapter 19 of my book, The Disappearance of Richard Blackwood. And the first sentence was actually written at Arrowhead, where I toured the Melville House. And of course, Melville and Hawthorne were best friends, so it makes sense that this paragraph would be an amalgamation of both of them. So I thought I would read it to you because while I was sitting here, I kept thinking about Hawthorne, and somehow I was able to channel him into my writing in a way that was almost transcendent. I almost couldn't believe it. So I thought I would read to you what I've written today so you can see and visualize that transcendent moment in your own mind. So here it goes. The sea rose up like a whale swimming towards the face of heaven. Each tide was a reverberation of secrets veiled by mournful hours. They were the streams of our minds made transcendental in water and agony, flowing through despair's beauty into rumination's last shadow. And that is the climax of my journey here today at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery.